The rope burned through my work gloves as I lowered the bucket into darkness. 68 years old, and here I was, drawing water from a well that hadn't been touched in decades. Below me, something scraped against stone, not the splash I expected, but a hollow thunk of wood meeting metal. "Careful, Martin," Eleanor called from the farmhouse porch. Even now, after everything our son had done, her voice carried that teacher's patience. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The letter had arrived on a Tuesday in March, slipped under our apartment door like a coward's goodbye. I found it coming back from my morning walk. Eleanor and I shared a one-bedroom above the hardware store in town, the place we'd moved after selling our house to our son, James. To simplify things, James had said 2 years ago, "You two were getting older. Let me take the house, and you can stay in the apartment rent-free. It's still family property." We believed him, raised him better than that, we thought. The letter was from James's lawyer. 30 days to vacate. The building had been sold to developers. Our rent-free arrangement wasn't in writing, wasn't legally binding. James had included a brief note in his own hand. "Sorry, Dad. This is just business. The sale gives me enough to expand the dealership. You'll land on your feet." Eleanor had read it twice, then folded it carefully and set it on our small kitchen table. She was 71, wore her silver hair in the same bun she'd worn teaching 3rd grade for 34 years. Her hands shook only slightly. "He knows," she said quietly. "He knows we have nowhere to go. We'd spent our savings on her medical bills 3 years back, a surgery that insurance barely covered. We lived on our combined Social Security, $1,900 a month. Every apartment we could afford had year-long waiting lists. The senior centers wanted $3,000 monthly. James didn't return our calls. His wife, Patricia, blocked Eleanor's number. We had 4 weeks to find shelter or face the street. I'd kept my father's papers in a fireproof box, the kind that survives disasters. Birth certificates, my discharge from Vietnam, Eleanor's teaching credentials. And buried at the bottom, a deed I'd forgotten about. Inherited when my father died in 1998. Never investigated because we'd had our house, our life, our plans. The county clerk was a young man with kind eyes who seemed genuinely interested in the mystery. He typed for several minutes, frowned, typed more. Delaney County, about 2 hours west. 40 acres, registered as homestead property, Delaney. Taxes are like $60 a year, and they're current. Paid through some ancient escrow account set up in the 60s. He printed the documents. Says here there's a structure on the land. A farmhouse, barn well. County records show it was condemned in 1987, but the condemnation was later reversed with a notation. Property deemed historically significant, preservation order active. No idea what that means, but technically, you own a farm, Mr. Delaney. What's it worth? I asked. He pulled up a satellite view. Dense woods, overgrown fields, a roof barely visible through trees. Middle of nowhere. No utilities running to it. Probably worthless for sale, but he shrugged. It's shelter, I guess. It was more than we had. We loaded Eleanor's sedan with everything we owned. Clothes, books, my tools, her grandmother's china wrapped in newspaper. 43 years of marriage compressed into a car truck. James's dealership sat 3 blocks from our apartment. I saw his BMW in the lot as we drove past. He didn't come out. He was such a sweet boy, Eleanor said softly. She wasn't crying. Remember when he'd bring me flowers from the neighbor's garden? He was 7. I remember, I said. Where did we go wrong? We didn't, I told her. He did. The farm was exactly as worthless as it looked. The road leading to it was barely passable, choked with brush I had to clear with a machete from my truck. The farmhouse was old 1920s maybe, with siding gray with age, windows intact but filthy. The barn had partially collapsed, and in the clearing between them stood a stone well with an iron hand pump, crusted with rust. The front door opened with a groan that echoed through empty rooms. Inside was dust, mouse droppings, and furniture covered in sheets. But the floors were solid. The roof held, and when I tried a light switch out of habit, incredibly, a bulb flickered to life. There's power, I said, stunned. Eleanor found the breaker box in a closet. It's active. There's a meter outside, and it's running. She checked the notation taped inside the box. Solar supplemental system installed 1985. Grid backup maintained by Historical Preservation Fund. We had light. We had walls. We had nowhere else to go. That night, we slept on the floor in our coats, using our clothes as pillows. Through the cracked window, I could hear the wind moving through the empty barn, and somewhere in the darkness, water dripping into the well. The well that would change everything. The farmhouse revealed itself slowly, like a photograph developing. We spent the first week cleaning, Eleanor attacking decades of dust while I patched holes and replaced broken window panes with glass from the barn's salvageable windows. The furniture under the sheets was solid oak, old but well-made. We found dishes in the kitchen, linens in a cedar chest, even canned goods from the 1980s lining the cellar shelves. Someone maintained this place, Eleanor said, studying a bedroom with a freshly painted wall beneath the dust. Not recently, but someone cared. In the desk in what had been the study, I found a ledger. My father's handwriting, entries from 1965 to 1987, property taxes paid, $45. Roof repair, north side, $340. Historical designation approved. Property protected. The last entry, dated May 1987. Electric system updated, solar panels installed. Well sealed per instruction. Trust fund established for perpetual maintenance. They'll never know unless they look. They'll never know what. The well bothered me. It was 40 feet from the house, built from fitted stones that had to be 100 years old. The hand pump was frozen with rust, but when I cleared the weeds around the base, I found newer concrete. A seal, poured sometime in the 80s, with a metal plate bolted into it. Emergency water supply. Historical Preservation Trust. Why seal a well and call it an emergency supply? I asked Eleanor. Maybe it's a time capsule, she suggested. Your father was sentimental. I spent 2 days freeing the pump mechanism, using penetrating oil and patience. On the 3rd day, it moved. On the 4th, it pumped, not water at first, but air, then a trickle of rust, then something that sounded wrong. The bucket I lowered on the 5th day hit something solid at 20 feet. Not water. Wood. I rigged a pulley system using rope and the barn's remaining beam structure. Eleanor held the flashlight while I worked, lowering myself into the well, using a climbing harness I'd kept from my construction days. My heart hammered against my ribs. Too old for this. Too desperate not to try. At 20 feet, my boots hit the wooden surface. A platform, built across the well's width. And on that platform, sealed in waterproof cases, were metal boxes. I hauled up the first box using the rope. It took both of us to lift it over the well's edge. The case was military surplus, stenciled with U.S. Treasury, 1964. The lock was frozen shut. I used my drill. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth and plastic, were bricks of cash. Old hundreds, bundled with paper bands stamped Federal Reserve Bank, Chicago. And a letter, sealed in plastic, addressed to Martin Delaney, Sr., to be opened by air. My hands shook as I read it aloud. Martin Jr., if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've found what I spent 20 years protecting. In 1963, I worked as a surveyor for the federal government during highway expansion. We discovered something, a buried vault from Prohibition era, used by a forgotten crime syndicate, containing approximately $260 million in cash that was never recorded, never claimed, never connected to any active case. The government's official position was that the money didn't exist. Acknowledging it would mean admitting law enforcement failure during Prohibition. Unofficially, we were told to destroy it. I was site supervisor. I made a different choice. I moved it here, to the family homestead, and sealed it in the well. I established a legal trust through a lawyer who owed me favors, declaring this a historical preservation site, ensuring the property would never be sold or seized, that utilities would be maintained indefinitely. The money is legally yours. It was never on any books, never part of any official case. It has no owner but us. Use it wisely. Trust no one with the knowledge. And know I did this because I believed families should be protected, always. Your father. The letter was dated 1987, the year before he died. Eleanor sat down hard on the ground. How many boxes are down there? We spent a week hauling them up, working only at night, telling no one. 23 boxes in total. Each one packed with cash, old bills, preserved perfectly in their sealed environment. Some boxes held gold coins. Others held bearer bonds from the 1950s, still technically valid. We counted in the farmhouse with the curtains drawn. 260 million, Eleanor finally said, her teacher's precision somehow holding despite the impossibility. Give or take a few million in the bonds. I thought about James, about his dealership expansion, funded by selling us out, about Patricia's new Mercedes, parked in their driveway the last time we'd driven past, about the apartment we'd been evicted from so our son could make money. We could destroy him, I said quietly, buy his dealership out from under him. We could, Eleanor interrupted. But we won't. She was right. We both knew it. We use what we need, she said. We make this place livable. And the rest, we help people. Quietly, the way your father would have wanted. I looked at my wife of 43 years, still beautiful in the lamplight, still teaching me how to be better. Okay, I said. Outside, the spring rain had started, drumming on the old roof that would soon be new. We spent April turning the farm into a home. I hired contractors from 3 different counties, one for the roof, one for the plumbing, one for the electrical updates. Paid cash, kept each job separate so no one saw the full scope. Eleanor worked on the inside, stripping wallpaper, painting, making the old rooms warm again. The well we left exactly as it was, though we installed a proper pump house over it, and a modern hand pump for show. The boxes went into the cellar, behind a false wall I built myself, covered by shells of my father's old tools. By May, the farm was beautiful. Garden beds Eleanor planted with vegetables and flowers. The barn partially restored as my workshop. Solar panels on the roof, updated but blending with the old ones. To anyone who asked, and few did, this far out, we were living on my pension and her Social Security, making do. We had everything we needed and enough hidden away to live comfortably for several lifetimes. The rest, we decided, would travel. The first donation was $5,000 in cash, left in an envelope at the county food bank with a note. From someone who remembers being hungry. Eleanor delivered it on a Tuesday, wearing a hat and sunglasses like a spy in a movie. We laughed about it afterward, but the laughter felt good. The second was $10,000 to the local library for children's books. The third paid off medical debt for a young mother we'd met at the grocery store, struggling with premature twins. We were careful, never more than $10,000 at once, never in ways that could be traced, always anonymous. Over the summer, money began appearing mysteriously around Delaney County. Scholarships for kids whose families couldn't afford college. Mortgage payments for families facing foreclosure. Medical bills vanishing for people who'd been drowning in them. We kept a ledger, like my father had. Helped the Martinez family, $8,000. Scholarship for Jenny Chun, $5,000. Food bank monthly, $3,000. It felt better than anything in our lives had felt before. James called in late June. I almost didn't answer. Dad. His voice was small. It's me. Hello, James. A long pause. I'm calling to say I'm sorry. For everything. For the apartment. For not being there. For choosing money over you and Mom. I waited. Patricia left me, he continued. Took half the business, most of the money. The dealership's struggling. I'm probably going to lose it. He laughed bitterly. Karma, right? Maybe, I said. Can I see you? Can we talk? I looked at Eleanor, who was shelling peas at the kitchen table, her hands steady and sure. She met my eyes and shook her head gently. Not no forever, but not yet. Not now, I told James. Maybe someday, but not now. I understand. He was crying. I love you, Dad. I love you both. I'm so sorry. I know, I said. But sorry doesn't fix everything, son. I hung up. Eleanor came and put her arms around me. That was hard, she said. It was, I agreed. But necessary. Maybe someday we'd see James again. Maybe someday we'd forgive him enough for that visit. But forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean pretending the betrayal hadn't happened. On a warm evening in September, we sat on the porch we'd built together, watching the sun set over our 40 acres. The garden was thriving. The barn was sound. In the cellar, behind the false wall, $260 million sat quietly, waiting to change lives one anonymous gift at a time. Do you think your father knew? Eleanor asked. What James would do. I think he knew people could be cruel, I said. Even family. That's why he did this, to protect us no matter what happened. A car came up the drive, rare out here. Rachel Morrison, the young mother with the twins whose medical bills we'd quietly paid. She waved from her window. Just wanted to say thank you again for the vegetables, she called. and to bring you this." She handed Eleanor a pie. "Apple, from my grandmother's recipe. It's not much, but it's perfect," Eleanor said warmly. After Rachel left, we ate the pie on the porch, still warm, sweet and tart, and made with gratitude. "We lost a house," Eleanor said softly. "We found a home," I finished. James had betrayed us for money. He'd lost everything anyway. We'd been thrown away, and we'd found treasure. But more than that, we'd found purpose. We'd learned that wealth wasn't the same as being rich, and being rich wasn't the same as being good. We had enough. We were helping others have enough too. And every night, we sat on this porch we'd rebuilt together, holding hands as the sun went down, knowing we were exactly where we needed to be. James could have all his regrets. We had our life, our love, and our secret legacy of kindness. We were the richest people in the world,